Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen Coworker tells everyone I'm not actually British. She really ends up regretting it. After that, am I the jerk for not asking my mother-in-law nicely to hand over the baby so I can feed him? And after that, oh, you're claiming that I did what? Alright, let's listen to my audio recording. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen steps on a Lego. Oh, you're so wrong for that. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen Coworker tells everyone I'm not actually British. She really ends up regretting it. For context, I'm a 20-something British-American male living in a very southern and undereducated part of the US. I've been here for a while now, and generally when I tell people where I'm from, I get a little pushback because I don't really have as thick of an accent anymore. On to the story. I work in a small office. We have a rolling line of temps that come and go. Most of them are barely high school graduates or people with very little in the way of worldly experience. This is important for later. So one day, they bring the usual parade of new hires around and I do my introduction. Hi, I'm OP. I'm one of the recruiters here at Company X. I'm married with 2 dogs and I am originally from the UK. Normally, this is just a throwaway line that I use as an icebreaker and it normally rolls right off. Until this one wonderful young woman pipes up. You don't sound British. She, of course, left out the T very purposefully. Me. Sorry, love. Forgot the coat and tails at home. I say as I drink my Twinings. The group kind of laughed it off and I figured it was a pretty open and shut deal. Nope. A couple of days later, word gets around that this chick has been telling a bunch of people that I'm not British and that I'm lying for clout. She said that I don't even sound British and that she is dating a British guy and knows how they act. So rather than being a mature adult, I do the very British thing of malicious compliance. I need an intern to bring me some tea. Would you mind climbing the apple and pears and pouring me a cup of Rosie Lee? I started wearing 3-piece suits, a pocket watch, and a monocle I found at a thrift shop. I went Super Saiyan 3 British. Obviously, about 3 hours into the first day, my boss wants to know what's up. I tell her, and she finds it so hilarious that she assigns that intern to me for the rest of the day. I kept using odd British rhyming phrases and sayings that she would have to keep asking me to speak normal. I would reply, "But I thought you knew how us British people act." She quickly realized her error, and we've been cordial ever since. Nowadays, I keep my old red passport in my desk drawer just in case someone pulls that stunt again. And for the record, I'm not British, I'm English, and a Scouser at that. Am I the jerk for not asking my mother-in-law nicely to hand over the baby so I can feed him? Hi, I'm a new mom, had my son 5 weeks ago. My husband's parents have been staying with us and things have been super overwhelming. Mother-in-law has a habit of taking the baby and refusing to give him back to me. She'd say I'm deliberately ruining her time with him. My son needs feeding every 2 hours, and she basically makes me beg her to hand him over to me so I can feed him. Last night at 10 p.m., mother-in-law had my son in her arms while sitting on the couch with my husband and his dad. I was exhausted. The baby started crying. I told my mother-in-law to hand him over to me so I could feed him. She refused, and I kept asking. My husband starts talking about what a whiny girl I was to complain that our son is receiving love and cuddles and how I'm using feeding as an excuse to keep the baby away from his mom. I ignored him and told his mom to hand over the baby. She refused and said I needed to wait a little longer. I got angry at this point. My husband said I could take the baby after I asked his mom nicely. This had me seething. I meanly told his mom to stop being annoying and overbearing and hand him over to me. She looked at me, shocked and hurt. She handed the baby over and ran into the guest room, and my husband gave me a look, then followed her and stayed inside to comfort her. He came into the room while I was feeding my son and started yelling about how disrespectful I was to speak to his mom this way and to treat her poorly when all she's doing is showing our son more love than I do. I told him about how she's been taking the baby for hours and preventing me from feeding him properly. He said that 1, our son isn't an object for me to act like I own him, and 2, his mom was doing nothing wrong, and 3, I should have asked nicely instead of being such a jerk to his mom and making her cry. I started crying and yelled back that I'd go to my mom's place if his parents stay any longer, and he yelled back saying, "Shut up! You're only acting up because you don't want my parents around. What's wrong with you?" then walked out. I felt terrible, thinking maybe I was rude to his mom, but I also think that I'd hit my limits here. Am I the jerk for not asking her nicely like my husband wanted? Not the jerk. Pack your gear and take your baby to your parents. Rethink your relationship as well. Who the heck speaks to their wife like that, especially after having a baby? Protect your mental and physical health at all cost. OP, your husband is prioritizing his mother's emotional wants over your 5-week-old baby's physical needs. Get out now. This is only going to escalate, and he's already shown his kid isn't his top priority. That's not normal. That's terrifying. Exactly. The mother-in-law is holding the baby for house and then complaining that mom taking him for feedings is ruining her time and bonding with him. Excuse her. She's not even letting his actual mom bond with him. Not the jerk. Also, throw the husband away. I'm usually so against when commenters on this sub call for OP to leave their significant other because it gets thrown around here over nothing. But in this situation, I actually agree. It's astonishing how OP's husband is treating her. He says something about how mother-in-law isn't doing anything wrong by holding the baby, but she is. She's preventing the baby from being properly fed. And to even insinuate that mother-in-law is giving the baby more love than mom, I'm astonished. Run, OP, not the jerk. Oh, you're claiming that I did what? Alright, let's listen to my audio recording. This happened a few years ago, and it's legal to record without consent in my state. Alright, so some years ago, I used to work for a major tech company. I had to move around floors a lot because I was in charge of the tech side of keeping business running smoothly for those that had to communicate with customers, clients, etc. There was this one lady that was a bit of a problem and had a habit of being involved in a lot of terminations due to supposed harassment claims. I had to deal with her a few times a week, somewhat regularly. Now, I have some trust issues and generally view a workplace as a minefield and tend to have "my colleagues are the enemy" mentality. I'm paranoid and anxious, so sue me. Because of that, I record every conversation I have and have a recording going at all times via a recorder pen that I keep in my shirt pocket. It's got great quality. Story time. I was doing some work after completely replacing the computers and many of the tech on her floor, and I had to walk behind her and several other people who were at their desks working. One of the several keyboards I was carrying out of the confined space hit the back of her chair while I was walking and talking into my headset to a colleague. She turned around abruptly and glared at me, but said nothing. I finished my work for the day and went home. Next day, I get in. I'm met by security and taken up to the HR floor. She made a claim against me, saying that I made a rude comment and it grabbed her, and I was being terminated. After everything is said and I'm handed the paperwork, I pull out my laptop and quickly pull up the camera feed, which has no sound. They say, "Well, there is not audio to cover you." So I say, "Well, actually, I record everything I say or do while working here." I then slowly pull up the recording for that day and have them listen to all of it. The lawyer in the room had the saltiest look I've ever seen. Well, they lost their grounds to terminate me, and I immediately filed an HR complaint and threatened to get legal involved. She was terminated a few days later. Around a week after that, they ended up going after her for embezzlement because they do a basic full investigation into somebody terminated and found that she had been stealing company money through an expenses card. It was apparently a lot because sometime afterwards, she ended up doing time. It was a great experience, and it justifies viewing your coworkers as enemies and recording them. Also, never trust HR. Am I the jerk for telling my parents I'm going to be as big of a problem as my sister is from now on? I, 17 female, am the responsible kid according to my parents. I have 2 siblings, 14 and 11, and my bro and I get along because we're both pretty quiet and easygoing, but my sister is a complete jerk, to put it frank. She throws a fit whenever she doesn't get her way, and usually my parents just give in because she's a big pain to deal with for days. She always has to be the center of attention, and she causes problems to get attention when she's not. Gets really old. I drive them to school and pick them up now, and our mom gave me money to get us fast food for dinner since she and my dad have a work thing and won't be home until late in the evening. My sister likes McDonald's, but I hate McDonald's, and we always eat what she wants. So I say we're going to Sonic because I know my bro likes their food and so do I. My sister insists we go to McDonald's, and I told her I'm driving, I decide where we go, and both me and bro are tired of McDonald's. She can shut up and deal. She starts screaming at me, tries to call our parents and doesn't get an answer, and eventually sulks and refuses to order food. I get an extra pack of chicken in case she changes her mind and take us home. She has a screaming, crying fit to our parents later about it, over McDonald's. Later, my mom says I know how she gets and to just humor her next time, and I say I'm not going to anymore. And also, it's crappy that she gets her way all the time, and they need to tell her to can it and make her do stuff me and my bro like sometimes, or leave her at home. My mom says she's difficult and we're more easygoing. So I say, so, you're saying I'm too nice and I need to be difficult to get what I want? Assignment understood. I'm going to be as much of a problem as I can from now on. Then I started not doing any more chores than she does. None. Using some of her more irritating phrases to the parents and loudly complaining about anything she wants to do. And now I'm the bad guy and being mean, and they say I need to be the mature example. But also, it kinda worked. They finally made her go to a restaurant we like and never get to go to. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It seems your parents are enablers, and though I don't really recommend your course of action, it seems to work. I'd also stop doing things for the sister. Can you pick her up? Nope. She's going to scream and cry about some arbitrary thing, so she can figure out her own way home. Here's money for food. Not for her. She'll scream and cry if she doesn't get what she wants, so give her money so she can sort it out herself while bro and I get food. Can you take out the trash? No, I feel that I just enable her as that is her chore, not mine. If you're not holding her to her chores, why should you hold me to mine? Anyway, don't become hated by your parents and kicked out because you're taking a stand. Get a job, make money, study, whatever you do, and move out and go low or no contact with your sister unless she suddenly stops being spoiled. I agree about not recommending this course of action, despite how satisfying it is, just because OP is 17 and approaching an age where her parents can kick her out or refuse to pay for college, etc. Definitely recommend moving out if it's an option, but at that age, it's not possible for a lot of people, and OP shouldn't burn bridges that she might need, and soon. Not the jerk. Bravo! Your parents failed on raising your sister, and you and your brother suffered. Now your parents can deal with the fallout of their bad parenting. Am I the jerk for threatening to ban my cousin from living at my vacation house after how she treated my daughter? I'm 42, female, and my cousin is 40, sometimes stays in mine and my husband's vacation home, which is like an hour from our town. My mother also lives there regularly. Sometimes my mother will take my daughter in the vacation home during the time periods when my daughter has no school. My daughter is 12. My cousin has 2 daughters as well, one who's 9 and the other who's 3. This time, my cousin stayed at the vacation house during Christmas period. Due to mine and my husband's work schedule, we couldn't have time off during Christmas, so my daughter went to stay there with my mom and my cousin and her kids. Recently, we started talking summer plans, and my daughter said she doesn't want to go to the vacation home if my cousin and her kids are also there during summer. After I asked her to explain, my daughter told me that my cousin would always yell at her or force her to babysit the kids so she could go smoke, watch TV, or be on the phone. She would also ban my daughter from doing her interests. My daughter loves gaming, and we got her first gaming PC, which she brought with her on the vacation house. My cousin apparently banned my daughter from playing on her PC because she's giving a bad example to her kids, and that as long as she's around, my daughter is not allowed to play games. My daughter also told me that one night she was watching Lord of the Rings, and my cousin's oldest daughter saw some scenes, got scared, and started crying. And that night, my cousin forced my daughter to give her the DVDs of the movie and banned her from watching TV or movies without her permission. I confronted my mom and asked her why she didn't do anything about any of this, and she said she wasn't aware because my cousin probably did all of this when my mom was not present. I have a hard time believing that, but my mom apologized both to me and my daughter. I called my cousin and lost it on her for how she treated my daughter, and I reminded her that she's only a guest at a house I and my husband own, and also it's my daughter's house, and she's got no right to boss my daughter around. She apologized at first, but then defended herself, saying that as an adult, she's also responsible for my daughter, and she did what she thought was best. My husband and I decided to give her one more chance, but told her she'll be banned from being a guest if she does this again. My mom and her called us the jerks and said we should just accept the apology she gave instead of threatening to ban her. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk for what you said to your mom and your cousin, but you are the jerk if you subject this on your daughter again. You are being far too lenient giving her another chance. OP, I don't plan to. Their reaction showed me that I should never have left my daughter on their watch again, and it's also a decision my daughter made and voiced. Let's be honest, your cousin didn't apologize to you or your daughter. She apologized that you were angry with her, then justified what she did. Your daughter can't use your vacation property because of your cousin's treatment. That alone, the fact you decided you can't trust them, means they shouldn't have access at all. Not the jerk. If she's not planning on continuing the behavior, she shouldn't be mad at the fact she'll be banned if she does it again. OP. That's exactly what I told her after, that I only mention she'll be banned if my daughter tells me she pulls something like this again. Her argument on that was that I can't always rely on my daughter's words without hearing the other side first as well. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her cousin? Please let us know. Bruh, who doesn't like Lord of the Rings? Am I the jerk for giving my boyfriend conditions on moving in with me? I'm 24, female, and my boyfriend is 26. We've been together for 3 years. I currently live with a couple of roommates, but our lease is up in 6 weeks, and they both decided they want to get different places. My boyfriend lives by himself in a duplex, and we've talked about me moving in with him before, but nothing too seriously. Now that I'm going to have to look for a new place anyway, we've talked about it more in depth. We've talked about how we would split costs, which furniture we would keep, stuff like that. One big hang-up, though, is that my boyfriend has a dog. I have some dog-related issues from my childhood, and they can be a massive trigger for me. When I first started dating him, I would make him put his dog in the bedroom when I visited, which wasn't often. I would pretty much make him come to my place 90% of the time. Eventually, with my permission, he started introducing his dog to me in small amounts. I'm now comfortable enough to be around the dog that the dog can be free in the house while I'm there, but my boyfriend has to be there too. I can't be around the dog by myself. My boyfriend also has friends that have dogs, and they bring them over to boyfriend's house and they let the dogs play in the fenced-in backyard that they have access to. Just the thought of unfamiliar dogs in and around my living space gets me on edge. I need to be able to feel safe and comfortable in my own home. I've had to leave my boyfriend's house before when his friends had their dogs in the backyard because they are loud and big, and I just can't handle it. So I told my boyfriend that if I'm going to move in with him, that we need to get a crate for his dog so that I can have a place I can put the dog when I'm home alone. I also told him that his friends would no longer be able to bring their dogs over. My boyfriend did not take this well. He has always been very supportive and understanding of my needs regarding his dog, but he told me that I was going too far. He said he's not going to punish his dog by putting it in a crate every time he leaves, and that this is as much his dog's home as it would be mine. He also said that my rule about his friends was controlling and he wouldn't agree to it. We fought about it because he's never been this dismissive about my needs before, and I didn't understand why he was being like that. Eventually he told me that maybe it's not a good idea that I move in anymore. I was shocked and told him he was being a jerk for putting dogs over my right to feel comfortable and safe in my own home. I also told him that he was putting me in an impossible position because I haven't even looked at alternative housing options. I can't afford to live by myself, so I would have to scramble to find roommates and possibly would have to live with people I don't know. He told me that he's sorry, but that he's already worked so hard to get me comfortable around his dog and he won't take steps backwards. I've done a few quick searches for housing and I'm pretty much done for if I don't move in with them. You're the jerk. That's not a good compromise at all. Your issues are yours alone to deal with, and your phobia can be worked through and healed with time and effort. He's already been extremely accommodating, but depriving the dog of its space and friends for the rest of its life is just cruel. Why doesn't my boyfriend love me enough to be cruel to his dog? This is such a small thing I'm asking. I honestly would avoid you like the plague, OP. Not because you have a trauma, but because you have zero empathy. Having people with zero empathy around in one's life is begging for trouble. Do boyfriend and dog a favor and find another boyfriend without animals. Also, preferably a guy who puts his own needs first over everyone else's, just like you do. It's not even OP's home yet. It's still her boyfriend's and the dog's home. The dog also has a right to feel safe and comfortable in its own home. The dog is not any less important just because OP wants to move in. You're the jerk. Having a safe room where you can retreat to if you are overwhelmed by doggo is reasonable. Having the doggy play date stay in the backyard is reasonable. Taking some dog training and interaction courses with doggo so that you are comfortable with giving commands and understanding how to deal with doggo is reasonable. Completely changing how doggo lives in his own home is not reasonable. But honestly, what did you think was going to happen? Your boyfriend has a dog. You've had years to work towards this eventually. Just because you are in a rush for housing doesn't mean you can force changes this extensive this quickly. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
You need to leave that doggo alone, bruh.
Sure, I'll photocopy 20 incorrect induction forms for you. Background. So I work security at a place I won't name. One of our duties is to make sure any contractors working on site are inducted. This is done by having them fill in a pretty basic multiple choice question sheet and takes a couple of minutes. It's not much of an induction, but it covers basic safety stuff. Anyway, our security office is pretty small, so normally we give people the paperwork and send them away to fill it out. They can even email it to us if they want. Of course, the contractors love this, as non-English speaking workers are pretty common, and we tend to get stacks of inductions coming back with eerily similar handwriting, and sometimes the same mistakes. I've raised the issue before, but if management doesn't care, then why should I? Believe me, I've gotten into scraps with my immediate manager about how lazily things are run and nothing is ever done. So I've stopped caring as long as it doesn't get too insultingly obvious. So yeah, one day it got pretty insulting. We get a guy come in who's a little ruder than usual. He's got an induction sheet already filled out and asks me to photocopy 20 times. To be clear, all the questions have already been answered. He basically just wants his crew to sign their names on it. I obviously say no, because even I have some standards, but my manager insists that I just do it. We get into a little argument. My manager takes me aside and basically gives me a rundown of how sick and tired of my crap he is. My crap being that apparently I'm the only one who complains about the low standards of our work and how it would make everyone on the team liable if anything ever went wrong. He tells me to just photocopy them and that's that. Okay, so I give up. Go to photocopy the inductions. As I do, I realize that it's actually the wrong induction sheet. I don't know where he got this particular form from, but it has 14 questions instead of 12. And on top of that, 4 questions, a full third of this very simple induction, are incorrect. Nice. So I photocopy the inductions and hand them over. Sometime later, we get 20 inductions scanned and emailed to us. Holding in my laughter, I reply to the email, CCing in our higher-up manager as is procedure, informing them that not only is every single induction riddled with a large amount of errors, but that they also appear to be identical, and that it's not even the right form to begin with. Within minutes, we get a call from our higher manager wanting to speak to my immediate manager. I can't hear what's being said on the other side, but my immediate manager says that he photocopied the inductions and I hear muffled screaming coming over the phone. My manager then nervously backtracks and says that I photocopied them. The phone is passed over to me and I tell my higher-up manager exactly what happened. The phone goes back to my immediate manager and the screaming resumes. My manager ends up taking the phone call in the back room for about 10 minutes. When he comes out, he's obviously shaken and passes on to me that the group of 20 contractors will now be instructed to come in one at a time and fill in the paperwork in person while my immediate manager supervises them. Since then, my manager seems to have suddenly become very concerned with occupational health and safety. Am I the jerk for telling my brother's fiancé the truth? I, 21 female, have an older brother who's 29 who has been divorced twice and is about to get married to his fiancé of 2 years, who's 26, and she had a party celebrating the fact that she got engaged a few days ago. I was invited, but my brother wasn't since she wanted to have a little party with her friends and since she wanted to bond with me, her future sister-in-law. She also invited me. So I started chatting with her and her friends, and later in the night we started to get a little tipsy. Then suddenly she started to talk about my brother, stating that she couldn't believe that he never got married before, since he is such a handsome man. But it didn't make sense that she said that, since he was divorced twice, and one of his former wives had a kid with him. Then she started to talk about him saying things that weren't true, like the fact that he was a lawyer. He worked at a hotel as a janitor, and that he was making $150K a year when he was making minimum wage. At this point, I was shocked because of how all the things she was talking about were untrue. So I asked her who told her this, and she said that it was my brother. I was confused as of why he said that, but I knew that before in his previous marriages that he had been horrible to his wives, so I knew either way I could not let this slide. I brought her to the bathroom upstairs and told her everything, and I mean everything. She looked shocked, and after I finished telling her, she went downstairs, got her stuff, and said that she felt sick and left. The next day comes around and my phone was blowing up with messages, missed calls, and DMs from my family and brother about what happened. It turns out that after she left, she went to her house where my brother was at the time, confronted him and broke up with my brother, then kicked him out. My family and brother are calling me an insensitive jerk and a homewrecker. I don't feel bad about telling her the truth, but I do feel bad about ruining his engagement. Am I the jerk? She deserved to know who she'd agree to marry. Also, what did the brother think was going to happen? If you tell someone lies, but don't tell people who know the truth the lies, they're likely to out your lies whether they mean to or not. It's pretty hard to afford a lawyer's lifestyle on a minimum wage janitorial position, so she was bound to find out the truth pretty quickly anyway, soon after the wedding. Exactly, the lies weren't sustainable. She would have found out sooner or later, and all OP did was ensure that it was soon enough for her to make an informed decision. Am I the jerk for not agreeing to let my wife travel internationally with our baby daughter? We have a 10-month-old daughter, our firstborn. I am born and raised in the US, while my wife's family is from Asia. After our daughter was born, my wife's family has not had the chance to see her. My wife hasn't seen her family in about 2 years as well, except for her sister and brother who live in the same city as us. The rest of her family is in Asia. She wanted to plan a trip to visit them with the baby. She wanted to leave around the end of April initially. Initially, I was 100% on board with it. We are not financially well off, so in order to pay for her trip, I've been working close to 60 hours for the past 3 months. I was putting my money and actions where my mouth is. Things got complicated when she wanted to celebrate our daughter's first birthday away from me. She now wants to leave 1 week before her initial plan so our daughter can celebrate her birthday with her parents and family back home, while I would still be in the US. She also wants to now go for about 4 months. I had multiple discussions with her. I explained to her that I want to be with my daughter for her first birthday. I also do not want to spend such a long time away from her. I want to watch my daughter grow up. I don't want to miss her first moments. I cannot make this trip with her due to finances. We both cannot afford to stop working at the same time. We are barely keeping afloat, especially with how expensive the trip will be. Her taking such a long time off work is also not financially feasible. Her response was that I should come for a week with her, celebrate our daughter's birthday, and then go back. Her family lives on a remote island between Asia mainland and Australia. It's a 2-day trip each way, costing more than $4,000 in tickets, not counting lockdown shenanigans. So her expectation is I travel for 4 days, stay for 3 days, and spend $4,000 rather than her delaying her trip by a week. She's now calling me a controlling jerk who is not supportive of her. Not the jerk. There's nothing controlling about not wanting to be separated from your baby for 4 months. The issue isn't the travel itself, it's the length of time you'd be separated and the emotional and financial strain that it will put on you and your family. That puts your wife in major jerk territory. Not to mention, he worked himself half to death to pay for her initial shorter trip, and he said that was with her full-time salary also helping. In other words, his wife expects him to work 100+ hours a week so that she can go on a 4-month-long vacation. Also, which Asian country is this? What are their extradition laws? This is getting fishy, and if I was OP, I'd be worried my wife is planning on taking my baby away and staying there. Not the jerk. I think it's bizarre that she finds it acceptable to leave you for months with your kid. I'd be careful, because if she takes the baby for that long, what's to stop her from staying indefinitely? I kicked out by Karen's sister-in-law and her boyfriend. Long story short, I'm 23 female, and my sister-in-law, who's 20, and her boyfriend, 20 male, have come to live with us because they got kicked out of the boyfriend's parents' house and then my in-laws' house. My in-laws struggle with substances, and my husband is my sister-in-law's only sibling. We told them they could come stay with us as long as they got jobs and sister-in-law got her GED, and they cleaned up themselves. We don't charge them any rent, and they only supposed to kick in like $200 a month for groceries when they started working. We have 2 kids, and my husband is the only one working currently. They've been here since the end of October, and only one of them is working. Altogether, I'd say they've worked maybe 3 weeks, and they're on workplace number 4. It's been 3 months. They argue with us when we tell them to do things, complain that the Wi-Fi doesn't reach their bedroom, so it makes playing video games hard, refuse to pay for any of the groceries or household supplies they use. They have enough money to buy booze and vape pods, but not enough to pay for their car insurance, which led to them getting a court date when they got pulled over. Guess who got to pay for their car insurance? Us. This is literally wrecking my marriage because I'm so angry all of the time. from these adult moochers living in my house. We've offered to pay for a deposit and first month's rent on an apartment for them, but they don't want that.
I've got to be able to keep a job for longer than a week first.
Direct quote from my sister-in-law. Not to mention, she's been talking about having a baby. We've tried nicely talking to them. I've tried being a tough guy and nothing is working. I'm done and I want them out. Would I be the jerk if I told them they can either pay for half of an apartment and we can pay for the other half by April 1st, or they can find somewhere else to go? Either way, they're getting the heck out of our house, even if it's to the streets. Edited to add, my husband's parents struggle with substances and are a mess. It was not out of the blue that something crazy would happen, and my sister-in-law and her boyfriend needed to get out ASAP. In fact, the straw that broke the camel's back was when my mother-in-law attacked sister-in-law and her boyfriend. I've never met the boyfriend's parents and had not met sister until they came out to live here. They live across the country, and for obvious reasons, my husband tries to keep his distance, so he wasn't really sure what was going on with his sister either. They're not addicts or bad people, just incredibly irresponsible, disrespectful, lazy, and entitled to other people's stuff. My husband's grandmother also really encouraged us to have them come stay with us because she thought they'd do well here. Not trying to argue with anyone, just fill in any holes into our logic of allowing them to come stay with us. Obviously, we thought they were capable of functioning in society, or we wouldn't have given the expectations we did. Job, GED, be responsible, and clean up your mess, etc. Hope that helps clear things up.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.